Thanks so much for coming out. Thank you to Kate for inviting me, and Pittsburgh Public Theater for having us here. This is actually a really cool space. So yeah, my name is Dane Horvath for short, but my real name is Mundania. I thought I'd put that up here because people always ask me like kind of weird questions when I'm introducing myself. Anything from, you know, is that a country? Did you make that up? And I'm like, no, I didn't make that up. Like, how the hell would I make that name up? So usually I just go by Dane. It doesn't matter. I don't really get offended if you mispronounce it. So yeah, my name is Mundania, or Dane for short. But yeah, so I run the blog Steeltown Anthem. I started that in 2009. I was living in Bethlehem, PA, around 2007, 2008, and before that I had kind of moved around a little bit. I left the city in 2004. I know it's a crazy timeline, but started visiting, and then before 2009 a lot for art shows and various things, and saw how the city was completely changing. It was this huge transformation happening right before my eyes, and it made me like sad that I wasn't here and envious to what was happening. You know, new buildings, restaurants, everything kind of popping up, and I felt like it was a completely different town from when I left. So yeah, so when I moved back, I kind of thought about, you know, starting something where I was really inspired by sites such as Apartment Therapy, Design Sponge, and Design Milk. They're like the big, you know, sites I've been reading since, you know, they started. So I thought, how cool would it be to maybe just do something where it's a focus of just our city. You know, we have a lot of great stuff happening. So yeah, that's how it started. One of my first interviews, my second post ever, I walked into Wildcard. She had just started the store, and I think she was just setting up. This is a more recent photo, though. I couldn't find my photos, but she kind of just started, and I walked in and shyly asked Rebecca if I could interview her, and she was like really cool about it, enthusiastic, and I warned her, I'm like, you're like my second post. There's no one reading this damn blog, and it's brand new. Just to warn you, you're not gonna get some great like publicity. And she was like, that's cool, that's fine. So, you know, that kind of started rolling the ball with, you know, getting into people's spaces and doing interviews. But you know, like when you say the word space, like it means so many things. Like, when just to be funny, I looked up the term just to kind of like, what the hell, you know, because you could say outer space or, you know, get out of my space. But to me, like, space is really a big reference to architecture and interiors for me. And the great thing about the space is my own space affects me a lot. Like, I want it to motivate me and inspire me. So coming back here, it just kind of, I started kind of looking at it differently. And doing Steeltown, it makes me think of what's around me a lot different. I actually, when I was a kid, I used to live in the city. I lived right there, little spot by Fifth Avenue place. I had an apartment. It was only like a little studio, paid $365, but it was like the best thing ever. But at the time, I didn't really appreciate everything around me because, you know, when you're here in town, you're just moving and you're going to point A to B. You don't really kind of stop and think, but it was on the same block as the old Art Institute that used to be on Penn Avenue. It looks looking kind of shabby right now. But the biggest comment back then was like, downtown's dead. Like, what do you have going on down there? And it's like, it's kind of bullshit. Like, you don't, it's not dead. Especially now, it's like revitalized and a lot of stuff happening. I could kind of see it, maybe people saying it back then, but now it's a completely different story. But the thing I do like to do, I love to go on a Sunday and just do exploring. It's the best time to go. You kind of just, it's quiet and weird, but it's not dead. Like, you can still go to restaurants and stuff is open, but you can kind of go on top of a garage and like take these photos and just kind of look around, and it's really inspiring to just pull it in and see what's around you. I always find new and different things. Like, This is one of my favorite buildings. It's the Alcoa building. It kind of looks like a spaceship, or like cool windows. And signage, there's so much signage. There's so many murals. I found this when I was climbing up on top of the garage to take photos. This is my favorite mural, the two Andys hanging out. I always think about Carnegie, like how he would feel sitting there with Andy and curlers. So I think, maybe he would have a sense of humor. I don't know, but it's one of my favorites. And the cool thing we have too, we have all these like great ghost signs. I started becoming more interested in the ghost signs when I was interviewed by the Post-Gazette, and she told me about a cool story she was doing on a gentleman named Red O'Donnell. All he did is ghost signs, and that was his thing. He was like the big advertising agency. He went up on these buildings and did the ghost signs. That's all the guy did. It's a really good story. I would totally look him up if I were you. But they're still around. Some of my favorites on Duquesne Boulevard. But yeah, can you imagine? Just climbing up on these buildings, that's insane. And I definitely know this guy. He did this one. But the thing with Steeltown is it gives me an excuse to invade your space, and people have been really cool welcoming me to take photos and just see what inspires you and what do you kind of do with your own space. And I always appreciate that. The thing we have here is an amazing community. No one's ever been a dickhead when I've emailed them. People have always been very friendly. That's like crazy. I only knew 2 people coming back here, so it's been really cool, and I appreciate it. This is my tiny office there. Everyone's always asking me, like, what the hell does your office look? What do you look like? So I thought I'd just post a small photo. I'm kind of a neat freak. So I have everything kind of organized. And that cool desktop was by my friend Matt Braun. If anybody's interested, you can download it. But I do collect things, cameras, posters, maps. One of the spaces that we did where we photographed Elisa Martin over, and she does have interior experience, so don't be intimidated or anything, but the thing I loved about Elisa and Jeb's space was it's so warm and inviting. They collect a lot of local art, and they reused a lot of wood and reclaimed wood, and they did a really beautiful job. And then this is a artist studio, Stephanie Armbruster. She was worried about it looking messy, and I was like, you know what, that's your studio. I think that's a great thing to have it kind of, looking like it is. I don't want you to fix it up or anything. But she had this cool elevator, the number 3. I thought that was funny. She does like really amazing paintings with, she uses wax and fire, and it's kind of really cool. This space is fun. This is Lindsay O'Leary. She used to live in this really tiny apartment. It's only 375 square feet, if I'm correct. But she saw this space and decided to kind of take it on. I don't think I would, but she had good ambition, so she redid it. And the thing when I posted this is a lot of questions. People were like, "Why would you put all that money into it? That's crazy." But she wanted to make it her home, and her landlord did reimburse her for a lot of the items, and she did like a really great job. She used a lot of stuff from Construction Junction, reclaimed wood. She actually used a bowling alley for her counter space. I'll show here in a second. How freaking cool is that? So she did a great job. And so you go in, and it's a kitchen. You walk up these really narrow stairs. I don't know if it used to be a butler's quarters if I didn't say that. And you walk up again to her living room, then you go up again to this attic. This is where she sleeps. Or where she used to sleep. It's kind of cool. It's like a little alcove. I couldn't show the whole photo, but she gutted everything. It was one of my favorite posts. But a lot of questions came in about that. This is used to be. She's in the process of moving. Strawberry Luna's space. She had like a cool little office. Printing studio over in Friendship. It's very small. Now they're going to move it into their home and have it out of there, but I always loved it visiting this space. This is an older one. Lisa used to have a really cool, she's always doing like really colorful things. Her name's Lisa. She does Sapling Press. I can't pronounce her name ever correctly, the last name, so I'm not going to try to butcher it, but when I walked in, I was like, whoa, she puts a lot of color, and it's a lot of fun, like when you're there. But yeah, so starting all this stuff, I also started kind of observing houses too. I'm kind of a nerd and I drive around and look at houses, and the architecture always kind of gets me. So I was working at Moss Architects and started to see, I was a designer. I'm not an architect. If you ever wanted a floor plan, I would mess it up and you would be really sad. So yeah, I just wanted to clear that up, because every time I say I had a job at Moss there, I was like, oh, can you do my interior or do you design? I'm like, no. So when I was working there, I started observing some of the younger architects were sketching, and I thought it was like really cool what they were kind of putting out. And I was like, wow, it'd be kind of cool if I did my own thing, and maybe, you know, houses that catch my eye. I was thinking about, I hadn't done any illustration work since I was a kid in college. I had a dickhead illustration teacher, so I kind of stopped, which was silly, but I hadn't done anything for a long time. So I started practicing and thought about a series I could come up with for a year that would kind of keep my interest, and that's when I kind of started Pittsburgh Digs. I'm never going to illustrate one house at a time. I don't know why I said that, but so I do go around, and that would be a great goal. I would love to accomplish that, but I don't think I'll do it in my lifetime. But I'd like to go around and look around at the houses, and things will catch my eye. A house might be like abandoned, or even just something small catches my eye. And I never show before photos. Usually when I post illustrations, it's an after shot. So today I'm going to show a couple before photos. This one's in Lawrenceville on 43rd Street. It caught my eye because, look, the one side's like, oh, cool, I'm real ornate looking, awesome. And then the other side, they're like, F it, I'm taking all this stuff off. I just want to put a couple windows. I'm done, I'm bored, I don't know. So, and also that 95, there's like a 95 right there. I thought that was kind of cool, the numbers. So this is what I came up with. I decided to embellish the colors a lot, and, you know, kind of make them really bright and complete opposite most of the time. Sometimes I stick with the colors that they were. This one's a house. It was actually the first house I ever thought about buying. I was 23 and I saw it was for sale sign, and they were like, oh, it's going to be 300 grand. I'm like, I can't afford that. It's crazy. But I always just thought it was a cute little house. So it's in the Regent Square area. And I decided to kind of make it completely different, make it brighter. I would probably, if I did own a house, I would paint it some crazy ass colors. So this one's real boxy. I was walking up on Nagley the one day and kind of looking around. I couldn't find the original photo. This is just chopped up from when I started tracing it. But it caught my eye because it looks like a Bauhaus painting. If you're familiar with Bauhaus, it's like square, very just square looking. But I guess it's an architect's home. I didn't know that until I posted it. Someone notified me, and I was like, oh shit, I hope they don't think, because like I do get emails like for architecture stuff, and I'm like, always have to say, no, I'm not an architect. So I know the lines might not be all correct. It's, you know, interpretation. So I decided to make it very colorful, and I think they should maybe add some paint to it too. I don't know. Maybe that's mean to say. I'm sorry. This one's in the Manchester area. I loved it because it says, if you've ever been in the north side Manchester neighborhood, it's crazy old houses from like the 1800s. I don't know when this house was built, but I actually didn't go far from these colors because I thought that was kind of interesting. And one of the last ones is, the roof caught my eye. It's kind of like these kind of weird angles. And this is over in Squirrel Hill. And I do plan on going to more neighborhoods. I just, you know, kind of get my own little bubble sometimes. But I think the one thing in conclusion, you know, don't be intimidated by your own space. Just be, you know, do something that where you go home or your studio, it kind of is, you look around and you're motivated to do work and you're motivated to be inspired. I think that's the most important thing about space. People ask me, like, how do I decorate? What do I do? You know, you don't overthink it. Just, you know, get stuff locally or buy prints or anything that kind of catches your eye. And that's it, you know. Don't overdo it. But yeah, thank you so much for coming out, and I appreciate you guys listening to me today.